I'm going to talk about substantive equality and neoliberalism. The talk is going to be rather short, just so we can have more time for discussion. And if I don't elaborate on any points, feel free to bring them up in discussion. And in terms of, I'm not going to talk so much about the political way, how we get there. That's actually more my second talk on Gracchus Babeuf. Feel free to come to that, just plugging that. So I think we should start with the 70s and how capitalism entered a structural crisis that affected, as Nazaros would say, the totality of the social system and its constituent parts. Because for the previous 30 years, at least in advanced capitalist society, we had the development of welfare states, near full employment, and high growth in profit rates as well. Now, by the 70s, this was no longer happening. In fact, capitalism was essentially moving from an ascending phase of development to a descending phase, and which was marked by three underlying trends that were identified by Harry Magdoff and Paul Sweezy, which is one, the slowing down of the overall rate of growth, the worldwide proliferation of monopolistic or oligopolistic multinational corporations, and what may be called the financialization or of the capital accumulation crisis. And the financialization is something we've all kind of seen in the last few years, where huge amounts of speculation are going into like hedge funds, derivatives, stocks, bonds. We have trillions of dollars, and it comes from a stagnation in the production of the real economy, goods and services. And although these financial speculations bring a lot of profit, they can crash equally spectacularly, as we're all well aware. And these three trends are part of the, what we can see in like the movement towards neoliberalism, which is to restore capitalist profitability. Previous reforms, such as the welfare state, are rolled back, which these the rights that were granted to the working class expanded. That's okay. Were kind of pushed back. And this meant that the reformist strategy that was pursued by Western social democracy and the Euro-communist parties, which did bring tangible benefits to the workers, was no longer viable in many respects. And we also see the rise of unemployment. And the neoliberal model, to varying degrees, was applied throughout the world, whether it's in the United States, England under Thatcher, which, let's all give an applause that she's finally dead. China after Mao, Latin America, most brutally in Chile under the Pinochet dictatorship, and of course in the former Eastern Bloc after the fall of the Soviet Union. Now, the thing that, especially with the fall of the Soviet Union, capitalism was seen as the only game in town. And even before the Soviet Union fell and real socialism, quote unquote, was gone, we were told that history had ended. Capitalism is the only game. There are no challengers. This is all we can really hope to achieve. In fact, capitalism is not only the end of history, it's eternal, it's invincible, it's resilient. And those of us who would question such a system are dismissed as fanatics, relics, and that's just being kind. Now, the thing is, the idea that there is no alternative, or TINA, to use its acronym, is really a form of false consciousness. It's a false way of viewing things. It's not dogmatic. It's antisocial. It is anti-historical. No, we did not. So this idea that history has ended not only is dogmatic and anti-historical, it fosters hopelessness among workers and oppressed who are victims of capitalist exploitation. If you believe that there is no way out, and the best that can be imagined is a few reforms from above, it really helps serve the interests of the ruling class, because you're looking for changes, however substantial, within the general framework of the system. And if history has ended, what use is there for another alternative, whether we call it socialism or communism? But history doesn't stand still. Capitalism is not the eternal present. It goes against all the laws of history. Classes struggle, revolutions occur, and when they do, the oppressed, as Walter Benjamin said, explode the continuum of history. And we should remember that the Roman Empire and French absolutism equally thought that their reign would last forever. And where are they now? Tune in at Channel 5 at 6. Now, we can say not just that they are wrong, and we can also repeat Galileo, but it moves. Now, capitalism in many respects, despite some of the trends of neoliberalism, has really not changed its fundamental operations. It is still a ruthless exploitive system that exploits the majority to serve the profits of the minority. It is built on structural inequality, which is entrenched and used to safeguard and is safeguarded not only by the repressive apparatus of by the state, but by a whole culture of inequality where we are supposed to recognize and accept our subordinate station in society. And under capitalism, we cannot develop our fullest potential as people, as human beings. We are exploited, alienated, degraded by a system that only knows the goal of profit. And for instance, Stephen Jay Gould kind of pointed this out in a rather profound quote, the famous scientist, and he said, "I'm somehow less interested in the weight and convulsions of Einstein's brain than in the near certainty that people of equal talent have lived and died in cotton fields and sweatshops." Something to keep in mind, how many potential people have just been wasted away and cast aside like human trash by the system. Now, even though structural inequality is inbuilt into capitalism, we're supposed to be content with the formal equality in the political spheres, such as the right to vote, however important it may have been. But this neglects that capital controls vast areas of power outside of Parliament. As Substantive Mazzaro says, capital is the extra-parliamentary force par excellence. And we do know the state, again, serves the interests of the ruling class, and it's also to maintain the social cohesion of the system. And of course, voting for a few representatives and tepid reforms is not going to change that. Now, real change takes place outside of Parliament. It's how it's happened in previous revolutions, and I would argue how it's going to take place in the future. And we see that in many respects the logic of there is no alternative, that history has ended, has really kind of gone out the window, especially in the last few years with the economic crisis. And we've seen new alternatives and challenges emerging, and there are manifold firms that challenge the logic of the system, whether we talk about the Arab Spring, Occupy, Venezuela, Greece, Nepal, and so on. And these challenges, in their own ways, are leaving open the possibility of new roads past capitalism, which some, I would argue, can lead to the rebirth of the emancipatory idea of substantive equality that are popularly known as communism. When we don't accept capitalism as the only game in town, and that there is an alternative, that alters the coordinates of possibilities for struggles, the possibilities of what we can achieve. As Jodi Dean says in her book, The Communist Horizon, with communism as our horizon, the field of possibilities for revolutionary theory and practice starts to change shape. Barriers to action fall away, new potentials and challenges come to the fore. Anything is possible. Now, I'm not going to so much elaborate on how to get to this future. You can ask me in the discussion period, but I do want to touch on substantive equality. And Substantive Mazzaro defines substantive equality as where we are really in control of the vital social, economic, and cultural processes through which human beings not merely survive, but can also find fulfillment in accordance with the designs which they set for themselves, instead of being at the mercy of unpredictable natural forces and quasi-natural socio-economic determinations. This essentially means a society where our basic needs are provided for, such as healthcare, education, shelter, and food. It also means a society of the widest-ranging democracy where we're truly in control of our lives. And to build this substantive equality during a transitional phase, when we emerge from capitalism, we know that, as Marx says, the birthmarks of capitalism exist, such as wage differentials, the state, and all sorts of inherited practices and culture exist. And however inevitable they are, that we don't want to build upon these defects of the old society. Because if we build upon various forms of inequality and wage differentials, they will lead us back to capitalism and a society that does not serve human needs. So rather, a socialist or communist society is we build upon strengths, not upon weaknesses, such as cooperation, solidarity, and free development. And I want to kind of give you an idea of what this looks like. And this is what Michael Liebitz calls the socialist triangle, which is three parts that are mutually reinforcing and its own mode of production, essentially, is social ownership of the means of production, social production organized by workers, and the satisfaction of communal needs. And to very briefly kind of give you an idea, social ownership means that the places of work are run democratically by the workers themselves. And social production organized by workers is where the workers themselves organize and build new relations of cooperation and solidarity in order to develop their human capabilities. And because in this case, if capitalism is a system of production that exploits workers, workers are also degraded and cannot develop to their fullest potential. And by having social production organized by workers, it builds relations of cooperation and solidarity, and they develop their human potentiality. And the third part of the triangle is the satisfaction of communal needs, where the associated producers, the workers, engage in productive activity for the needs of the community, and there's a continuous process of development of the workers. And this is linked to revolutionary practice, revolutionary self-emancipation. So this alternative of substantive equality, the socialist triangle, is one where people are not only in control of society, not only where they have basic human needs provided for, but they develop their fullest potentials as human beings, their full development, as opposed to being exploited and degraded under capitalism. And Marx and Engels describe this society as we will have an association in which the free development of each is the condition for the free development of all.